Hi guys, welcome to 5mantra.com. This is Rajesh, General Studies faculty. He is here to explain you the polity multiple choice questions. So in our series of polity MCQs, so today's topic in this video lecture, I am gonna give you insights on the questions related to directive principles of state policy. Coming to the directive principles of state policy, this directive principles of state policy in the constitution has a place from article 36 to 51 under part 4. So these directive principles of state policy will guide the state in their policy formulation so that their policy will meet the economic and social ends of the citizens, towards the social and economic welfare of the citizens, in other words. So let us do some exercises, some questions related to the exercise of this directive principles of state policy. So coming to the first question, the enforcement of directive principles depends on. So he is asking about the enforcement of directive principles are depend upon whom, like what. So coming to the options, first option is courts, second option effective opposition in the parliament, third option resources available to the government, and fourth option public cooperation. So these are the four options, guys. So the enforcement of directive principles is based on resources available to the government, because see, there is no compulsion to the government to follow the directive principles of state policy, as they are not legally justifiable. They cannot be enforced by the judiciary. But these principles will guide the government to frame their policy to meet the welfare ends. So that meeting would be possible only when the government is having the ample of resources, the required resources. Only then they can meet the ends of directive principles of state policy. So the enforcement of directive principles depends upon the resources available to the government. So the option C is the correct answer for this question. The next question is, if the state implements a directive principle calling for a equitable distribution of material resources, then it. So he is asking that if the state implements a directive principles ensuring the equity, ensuring the equitable distribution, that is distribution on the basis of equity. So what if what are the consequences after that implementation? The first option is it is put in the 9th schedule. It will be kept in the 9th schedule. Second point, it is not void even if it violates the rights in Article 14 and Article 19. The third option is it can be struck down by the Supreme Court on grounds of violating fundamental rights. And the last option is it is not void if it violates a fundamental right. So here the first thing is you need to understand the question first, and then you, through the elimination procedure, you can solve out this question. First, if the state implements a directive principle calling for equitable distribution of material resources, then what? So here I just want to give you the explanation regarding equitable distribution of material resources. So there are two types of distribution, guys. One is the distribution depends upon the equality, and the distribution depends upon the equity. So in these two different kinds of distributions, we have a sharp differences between these two. What is that? The distribution based on the equality, then the fruits of the benefits from that distribution will be distributed to all the people without any discrimination. Even though they deserve or they do not deserve that fruits, the fruits will be distributed to all the people without any discrimination on the basis of equality. When we come going to this concept of distribution on the basis of equity, the term equity says that it is the combination of equality and justice. Just like whoever is needed of that resources, then only them will be eligible to get that resources, get the fruits of those resources. For example, if you are the person, if I am the person, so you are capable of affording a ticket through the flight to Delhi. So I don't even capable of affording train ticket also. So on the basis of equity, the resource called financial resource or the resource called train tickets should be available at the subsidiary cost, or at least or otherwise in free of cost to me, not to you, because you are affordable to buy the flight ticket also. So, but I am not affordable to buy the train ticket also. So, the fruit of resource, that is called subsidization on the train ticket cost, will be available to me. So, this story will explain you the clear insight of equity. So, based on the equity, the question is, if the material resources are distributed based on the equity through a directive principle, then what is the consequence of that directive principle? Let us see. First, it is put in 9th schedule. What do you mean by 9th schedule? See, 9th schedule has been added to through the First Amendment Act enacted in 1951. So, original constitution has only 8 schedule, and the year after the constitution came into force, that is 1951 May, this 9th schedule has came into the constitution, came into the picture. And according to this First Amendment Act, the 9th schedule is the area where whatever the legislations or the policies of the government which are having conflict of interest with any other constitutional provisions, then in order to shield them, in order to protect those provisions which are in the conflict of interest to other constitutional provisions, okay, they have been kept under 9th schedule, so that even though they have the conflict of interest with other constitutional provisions, the judiciary will not examine these provisions, because the 9th schedule gives the protection from the judicial review. Whatever the provisions kept under the 9th schedule, they will have the shield from the judicial review. So, till the Indira Sahani case in 2007, till 2007, all these provisions in the 9th schedule have been safeguarded from this judicial review. But in the verdict of Indira Sahani case, the Supreme Court has ruled that whatever the legislations added to this 9th schedule, legislation and policies to this 9th schedule after 24th April 1973, that is the date of Keshavananda Bharati case ruling. So, after that date, all those legislations or policies are subjected to judicial review, and whatever the legislations and policies have been added before 24th April 1973, they have the shield from the judicial review. So, this is the landmark judgment in the Indira Sahani case, where this 9th schedule is open to judicial review. Okay, so obviously, if the state implements the directive principles for equitable distribution of material resource, it will be kept in 9th schedule. I think there is no need of keeping in 9th schedule, because the constitution itself supports the positive discrimination. It supports the positive discrimination under Article 15, where there is a positive discrimination, like the state shall come with the policies which fosters or which encourages the socio-economic situations of backward classes. So, this is also a provision which supports the equity, undermining the equality. But in order to make these deprived sections or weaker sections to thrive, so the constitution provides a space or room for the positive discrimination. So, obviously, the question itself depicts the positive discrimination where it is acceptable by the constitution. So, there is no conflict of interest with the other constitutional provisions, but with these provisions, so there is no need of keeping it in the 9th schedule. And the second point is, it is not void even if it violates the rights in Article 14 and Article 19. Article 14 says the right to equality. So, it is committed towards the ensurement of equality, and Article 19 is the right to freedom. We have different set of freedom rights. So, if this material resources distribution on the basis of equity violates the Article 14 and violates the Article 19 also, it will not become void. It will not become void, because the judiciary will not strike down this principle on the grounds of that it is violating the Article 14 or Article 19, because I have already told you that material distribution on the basis of equity has been supported by the Constitution of India. Though the Article 14 and Article 19 got violated, it will not be declared as void by the Supreme Court. So, second option seems to be relevant to the question, and we will examine the rest of the two options, then we will come to a conclusion. So, the C option is, it can be struck down by the Supreme Court on the grounds of violating fundamental rights. Now, I have already told you, even though the Article 14 and 19 have been violated, with this provision, with this material distribution on the basis of equity, it is welcomed by the Constitution of India. So the judiciary will not struck down this situation, this provision on the basis of violation of fundamental rights. And you know, both the Article 14 and 19 constitutes the fundamental rights, and even though they are violating the fundamental rights, though they cannot be amounted to struck down. So the third option is wrong. And fourth option, it is not void if it violates the fundamental rights. So if it violates any other fundamental rights other than Article 14 and 19, it will be declared as void. But it have been mentioned here, it is not void. So the D option can be easily eliminated. So the answer is the option B. It is not void if it violates the Article 14 and 19, which are fundamental rights, because the Constitution supports the positive discrimination for the upliftment of backward sections. Okay, so this is the question, guys. So coming to the next question, which one of the following is not a correct description of the directive principles of state policy? So we have to choose the statement which is not describing the directive principles of state policy correctly. So first option, directive principles are not enforceable by the courts. Second option, the directive principles have a political sanction. Third option, the directive principles are declaration of objectives for state legislation. Fourth option, directive principles promise equal income and free health care for all citizens. So these are the four options, guys. Let us look upon its rationality. First option, directive principles are not enforceable by the court. Yes, unlike fundamental rights, directive principles cannot be enforceable by the judiciary according to the constitutional provision. Second option, it is correct option, correct statement. Second option is directive principles have a political sanction. Yes, because I have already told you that directive principles can be enforced on the basis of the resources held with the government. So if it needs the political cooperation and coordination on the levels of political representative level, so that the government will come forward, frame a policy, formulate a policy on the basis of DPSPs, and then they will implement that policy. So it is all based on the government organs. So it obviously have the political sanction. So the second statement is also correct. The third statement is the directive principles are declaration of objectives for state legislation. As I told you in the name itself, the directive principles of state policies, these are the principles acting as directives to the state in framing out their policy. So the state matlab either the central government or the state government. So in framing out the state legislations, these directive principles acts as a declaration of objectives, like guiding principles. So the third option is also correct, like third statement is also correct. Coming to the last statement, directive principles promise equal income and free healthcare to all citizens. So in India, due to large population, we don't have such provisions like equal income. So just like it is nearly to the universal basic income and free healthcare for all Indian citizens, like universal healthcare system. So there is no such, there are no like equal income status and free healthcare to all the Indians. So the directive principles does not promise any equal income and free healthcare for all Indians. It only directs the state in order to ensure the social justice. In order to ensure the social justice, it will direct the states. That's it. So the fourth option is wrong. So which one of the following is not a correct description of directive principles of state policy? That is fourth option. Directive principles promise equal income and free healthcare for all Indians. Wrong. It did not promise any equal income and free healthcare for Indians. So the answer here is option D. Okay. So coming to the next question is, the purpose of directive principles of state policy is to, that's the question. So coming to the option, to lay down positive instructions which would guide state policy at all levels. Second option, to implement Gandhiji's idea for a decentralized state. Third option, to check the use of arbitrary powers by the government. Fourth option, to promote welfare of the backward sections of the society. So these are the four options. It seems to be all the options are correct, but we have to take the exact purpose exact purpose of the Directive Principles of State Policy. Let us see. First option, it lay down positive instructions on the state so that it would guide the state policy at all levels, at both the central level and the state level. So the first option is very comprehensive. So let us compare the first option with other options. So the second option is to implement Gandhiji's idea for a decentralized state. So in the Directive Principles of State Policy, we have Article 40, which says that which says the provisions regarding panchayats, decentralized state, and whole of Directive Principles of State Policy have been classified into three approaches, like three classifications. First is Gandhian principle, second is socialist principle, and third one is liberal or intellectual principles. So here the second option is about the Gandhian principle, but only the Gandhian principle cannot overmine the whole of the Directive Principles of State Policy, because besides Gandhian principles we have socialist principles and liberal or intellectual principles. So it is not comprehensive, but it is a part of Directive Principles of State Policy. So coming to the third option, it checks the use of arbitrary powers by the government, but it is wrong. That is the wrong statement, because fundamental rights will check the arbitrary powers used by the government. It is not the Directive Principles of State Policy. So the third option you can eliminate directly. Fourth option, it promotes welfare of the backward sections of the society. Obviously, as I told you earlier, Directive Principles of State Policy is to meet the ends of social and economic welfare order. Okay, so in order to promote the welfare of the backward sections of the society is one of the Directive Principles of State Policy, one of the theme. But as a whole, like the purpose of Directive Principles of State Policy is to guide the state in its making a formulation of legislation or policy at all levels, that too positively, in order to meet the social and economical order. So the first option is an apt option to the question. So answer is A. Coming to the next question, in the Constitution of India, promotion of international peace and security is included in the. So first option, preamble to the Constitution, Directive Principles of State Policy, fundamental duties, and ninth schedule. So the provision called promotion of international peace and security is under Article 51. As I told you earlier, Article 36 to Article 51 constitutes the Directive Principles of State Policy, whereby this Article 51 is the Directive Principles of State Policy, and this promotion of international peace and security is a part of Directive Principles of State Policy. So the option B is the correct answer. So guys, this is all about the questions regarding Directive Principles of State Policy. Hope this video will enhance your preparation, your potential of preparation. If it's so, please raise your thumb to us and follow us on the platform called 5mantra.com for more updates, for more MCQs. Thank you.